Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Monir El Azzouzi from easymedicaldevice.com, and today we'll talk about what? About post-marketing surveillance for software and AI-driven devices. So mainly, you know all about what is a post-marketing surveillance. Mainly, it's collecting data that are on devices that were placed on the market, post-market mainly, that you are certified and you place them on the market. So you collect data, you analyze those data to just verify that your device is still safe, is still working, is still doing everything. And mainly you have to do that regularly. But when we talk about now software-based devices, then there is another situation that you have really to understand, because people may think, oh, it's the same, so it's working, etc. But no, there is really another situation, and specifically when those software are cloud-based or they are also having AI, for example. So this is something that we have really to understand, because mainly this can change dramatically the way you have to do PMS and also the way that your notified body will be checking for that. So when you do post-marketing surveillance for example, a hardware device like a pacemaker or like surgical instruments, so as I said, it's more about something, how to say, static, or if I can say, or it's like there is not a lot of evolution. It's not evolving too much. But when we talk about the software gets a lot of evolution even within 1 week or 1 month, because there are a lot of updates which are based on the software itself or on the environment of the software. So you have to take that into account for specifically if your device depends on some cloud-based or AI, for example, because example for AI, we will have some maybe continuous learning also for your software. So now I hope with this you understand that post-marketing surveillance is not something that is really one-to-one with what you were doing maybe before. So now with software, you have to be careful, and a lot of notified bodies will be maybe chasing you about that. So what we'll be talking about today. Today we'll do first how a post-marketing surveillance is different from a software, for a software with AI also. Then how to monitor and detect the anomalies. How to validate when the software or the algorithm change. We'll also look at the regulatory expectations and reporting. Mainly, it's really important that we understand what exactly the regulators will look for. We'll give you some practical workflow for a QRA that can implement all what we are talking about. And I'll show you maybe some real world examples or something that can happen, and that you then will be using for understanding many more about post-marketing surveillance. So by the end mainly of this podcast episode, I hope you will understand that post-marketing surveillance for software is really a living process. It's not something that is really static. So, and the objective mainly here is to protect the patients and to protect also the regulatory aspects that you will be working on. So mainly, I hope this will help you. Okay, let's start now with the basics. So if you have a traditional post-marketing surveillance, mainly what you will do is that you will look at the customer complaints, you will look at the vigilance reporting that are happening, you look at maybe some PSUR that you have reviewed before, and then include that inside and then verify mainly what is there. So, and the frequency can be maybe long, like 1 year to do all this. But when you are working with software as a medical device, you have, as we said before, some continuous update of your software. So it means that when you find some issues, then you have to update the software. So the post-marketing surveillance should not be only looking at the issues, the failures that are happening and why you update that, but also at the code change, because you are changing your code. So what will be this code change affect, how this code change will affect your device? Second, your device is maybe connected to the cloud or it's a software as a service. So in that case, this device is not just sitting in a hospital alone. It has maybe to connect with a lot of infrastructure like servers, some cloud-based also maybe that are outside of the hospital also. So there is some infrastructure, some environment where your software is connected. So on your post-marketing surveillance, you should not limit that to your software, but you should also include the environment, the risks that are based maybe on the server or the device itself. So you have to make this included also. And lastly, we have also software with artificial intelligence, and what you may have validated as correct clinical output at the beginning can maybe drift and change due to the fact that you now release that on the field. So mainly you have now to collect data from the field, and there can be maybe some biases also. For example, if you have a software that is detecting cancer by scanning maybe your skin, some picture of skin, so maybe you have made your testing by providing a lot of skin picture of fair tone skin mainly, but now that you are letting this product being on the market, you find out that there is some issues with some African or Asia countries, hospitals that are finding out that the accuracy is really dropping, mainly because you are now going to the real world and you are now getting data from maybe some skins that were not the ones that you were validated correctly. So these are all the information that you should collect through this post-marketing surveillance, because this will help you to then make some correction. This is why you have this post-marketing surveillance. So the mindset is changing. The post-marketing surveillance for the software is not anymore static, it's really dynamic. So it's dynamic, it's continuous also, and sometimes, as we talk with AI, it's sometimes unpredictable. So what you have to do here is to really consider this post-marketing surveillance for software maybe a bit more frequent, because it's not, as I've said, on the traditional things, the updates are more frequent also. For a surgical instruments or a pacemaker, maybe you are not updating that every month, maybe you are updating that every year or 2 years. Here, the updates can be more frequent, so you have also to take that into consideration for when you are doing your post-marketing surveillance. Okay, now let's talk about usage monitoring. So for traditional post-marketing surveillance, or for traditional devices, the post-marketing surveillance is reactive. So you wait for a complaint to come, or you wait for a report to come, etc. Here with software, and with the magic of software, mainly you can be proactive by monitoring the usage data in real time. So what does it mean? For example, first you have the log, usage log. So mainly the log where you can see who is using what. So it can track your software on how often it's used, who is using that, which environment also, which software, which thing, etc., which connection, environment, etc. And this, for example, you can understand how many images are generated for diagnostics, how many failures are appearing in the log. So you can then also take those data for your post-marketing surveillance and to act immediately, or to already know if there is a tendency or not. You can also have a system maybe within your software to detect anomalies also, which may be built on unusual patterns. So if you see something that is unusual, you can maybe say, okay, there is an alert here. Like for example, you have an hospital that is reporting a lot of false negatives. Then, if you have that, you maybe can already understand that there is an issue on this field, and you can act directly or immediately. There is also the possibility to create some automated dashboards where you can have on it the accuracy, the latency, the error rates. So these are indicators that can be on this dashboard. And instead of just having indicators on the dashboard, maybe an advice is to put in place some performance threshold. And you can say mainly, for example, if my accuracy rate is dropping below 95%, then we can trigger an investigation. But if my downtime exceeds 1%, maybe we can then escalate. So now by doing this shift, if I can say, on post-marketing surveillance, you move from a static reporting, a boring static reporting, to really an active monitoring system, which can really help you within your role as software developers or device developers, and for also guaranteeing the patient safety and performance for your device. So don't really neglect this. One of the hardest challenge here is revalidation. For hardware, you may have a design change once every few years. So it's not like every time. But for a software, as we said before, it can happen monthly or weekly. And even with AI, the models can be retrained continuously because mainly they are looking for real world data. So with all this, how do you stay compliant? So let me give you some step-by-step things. First, you have to define some update categories. So mainly you have to define the categories for updates like minor update or major update. Minor update is like some bug fix or some fix without safety concern. And this you can just use documentation to prove that everything is fine. And you have the major updates, which are more a change in the algorithm or some new clinical claims. And in that case, that requires a new revalidation and sometimes also a new submission. And this is something that nobody wants, I know. Second, you have to do a regression testing. So regression testing mainly is like every time you release a new version, you have to rerun a defined set of testing and verify that the safety and performance hasn't regressed. Because mainly you have to verify that you are providing a better software than the previous version. So you have to run those kind of testing. And for AI, AI can, I don't know for your model, but AI can also learn from a real world data. So you need to have a strategy here. If you authorize continuous learning for your AI, or if you freeze the learning until it's retrained offline. And if it's retrained, do you validate before deployment? Example, we have an AI software that is a cardiological AI software, mainly that is detecting or predicting arrhythmia risk. If it's retrained on a new hospital data, so it can maybe be better or improve. But it can also learn from the local biases of this hospital. So without revalidation, you have the risk to deploy an unsafe model. So this is why it's really important. And it's why also there is a role here for QA. QA should verify that on this full update process, there are some checkpoints, some validation checkpoints to verify that mainly you are really following or avoiding some of those risks and not just saying, oh, let's make it on the market without really doing all that. It takes too much time, etc. No, you have to follow some process, and this is your role as QA to verify that this is in place. So again, not every update need a new CE marking, a new FDA clearance, but every update needs a documentation justification why this is not risky or there is no risk with what you have decided to do. So what do regulators now expect for the post-marketing surveillance for software and AI? So if you look at EU MDR and IVDR, mainly they want your post-marketing surveillance to cover all the real-world data, real-world performance, and also to be included inside your PSUR. For software, mainly this means you have to collect evidence that your updates didn't degrade your safety, performance, etc. And for AI, it may include also some performance across subgroups, because we talked about biases also. If you look now at FDA, they propose the PCCP. If you remember, we had that on some previous episodes. So PCCP means Predetermined Change Control Plan for AI ML, so artificial intelligence and machine learning. So this means that you can predefine which updates you'll make and also revalidate how you will revalidate them. So the post-marketing surveillance becomes the evidence that you followed the plan. There is also the IMDRF. They recommend the good machine learning practices, which include continuous performance monitoring, as we talked before, and transparency about dataset limitation. So this is something that is really written on the guidances. The regulators, from their side, They don't expect you to have zero issues. Nobody can expect that. But they want, or they expect you to show that you have control. So you know what we are talking about, and you control what is happening. And this is why this is always important to have all those elements that we talked just before. Example, if your post-marketing surveillance detects some algorithm bias, regulators will look at your corrective action. And one corrective action, the smartest one, can be to freeze your model, to retrain the model with diverse data, and then to notify the user. And the less smart solution can be that you ignore completely that and you just wait that the patient is harmed. So this is mainly something that you have to show to the regulators, and again, only documented elements can be a proof or evidence for them. Okay, so how can QARA then implement all this? So let me give you a practical workflow that I have listed here. So step one, you have, as we talked before also, to define some key performance indicators, KPIs. So this can include accuracy, sensitivity, specificity, uptime, error rates. Then you go to step two with collection of those data. So as we talked before, you can use some logs from the devices, cloud analytics, user feedback. The step three is monitoring continuously. So as we said, we have some dashboards or automated alerts that we can implement, but don't rely for this only on complaints, because people say, oh, I never received the complaint, so why should I do anything? So use that, as I've said, proactively. Don't wait for any complaints. Step four, investigate the anomalies. If the accuracy drops, then you have mainly to launch a CAPA, and you have then to document the root cause and then to put in place an action. In step five, you have to revalidate the updates. As we said before, it's really important when you have an update to define, should we do a revalidation? For that, do some regression testing, some performance evaluation, and provide always a justification for regulatory impact. As we said, major impact or minor impact. Then step six, it's a report in the post-marketing surveillance or PSUR. So you have to include inside the trends, corrective actions, and performance stability. So this has to be documented there. And this document, as said, is really important because it will show that all the work that you have done all along maybe the year to gather all those data and then to put in place some conclusion there. Then step seven, you have to communicate with the users. If you find and corrected an issue, don't keep it for you. Communicate transparently with the hospitals or clinician. This can also build some trust with them. And an important point also for quality and regulatory affairs, this team of people, they should not do all this alone. So if you are part of QARA, don't think that you should do that alone. No, you have to be the owner of the process, but you have to use a cross-functional team like R&D, data scientist, IT, or clinical expert. But your role is, as I've said, to own this process and also to ensure that the documentation are available and compliant also. This is your role. So let me give you a story that makes all this real. So we have a company that released an AI software for detecting retinopathy diabetes with the retina, mainly from retinal images. So many who make those images from the retina with those cameras. And then with this image, we can identify if there is some kind of diabetes situation. So this solution, AI solution, was validated and launched in Europe successfully, there is no problem. After a year, their post-marketing surveillance dashboard, so the one that we talked about before that mainly were actively gathering data, was showing a drop in sensitivity at 2 hospitals. So this is mainly a situation where you can get that in real life, because mainly you are gathering those data in real. So the investigation showed mainly that those hospitals used a slightly different camera for their images. I suppose maybe they have updated those cameras or changed, or maybe those others were broken or whatever, but they changed that. So the AI hadn't been trained on those type of images. So what the company has done, the corrective action, what they have done is that they have retrained their model with the new type of images, with the new type of data, those data that you are gathering. They have validated the new version, and then they released an update. So you see mainly retraining, validation, release, so it's the same kind of workflow. Then the regulators were satisfied because mainly they detected the issue proactively. They didn't wait to get a complaint for whatever. They also investigated the root cause, and they corrected and retrained and validated the model. And finally, they documented everything in their PMS and PSUR. So this is exactly what an AI tool or AI post-marketing surveillance report or process should look like. Not waiting for complaint to come, but actively, proactively gathering the data through your system and then acting and correcting that. So this is what regulators are really expecting for you. So don't miss that. Don't use the old model of a traditional post-marketing surveillance. Think proactively with those systems, and even when you are designing those systems, think proactively of the post-market situation. Okay, so let's finish with the checklist. So we'll see mainly if you are responsible for post-marketing surveillance for your device or not. So what question you should ask yourself? So the question you should ask is, do we collect real performance data and not just wait for complaints? Do we have KPIs and thresholds for triggering some investigation? Do we have a defined process for revalidating updates? Do we document algorithm drifts, because for AI this can happen, and retraining decisions? Do we report findings transparently in the post-marketing surveillance and PSUR? So if you can relate to most of those questions, so you are in good shape. But if you cannot, start somewhere. Start by maybe defining the KPIs and the threshold, or defining just the dashboard. This will be a good move already. So if you like this episode, so thanks again for listening to that. So if you liked it, don't hesitate to mainly share that also with your QA area colleagues. And I hope this helps you to understand more about post-marketing surveillance for software and AI devices also, because as I've said, it's completely different from what you were doing before with post-marketing surveillance for traditional devices. So thank you very much, stay compliant, and talk to you to another episode.